Okay, we're going to bring this meeting to order. Amador County Board of Supervisors. We came out of closed session with 1A, one case. Update was given. Number 2A, confidential minutes were approved. Wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public matters not on the agenda, discussion items only. No action to be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of Amador County Board of Supervisors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and/or committee for report and recommendation for possible action at subsequent board meetings. Please note there's a 3-minute time limit. Anybody from the public? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Board?
Nothing.
Okay. I went to the blood drive yesterday and at the Veterans Community Drive. Now, I want to read a letter from Robert Saraceno. Thank you so much for your support of the Veterans Community Blood Drive. I have been managing these blood drives for 18 years of their 31 years. This blood drive was started in Ione at the VFW Post 8254 in 1992. During the 13 years it was at the VFW Hall, we collected 1,965 pints of blood. In 2005, we moved to the blood drive to the American Legion Post 108, located on Sutter Hill. In the 18 years I have managed the drives, we have collected 9,988 pints of blood. This gives us a total of 11,953 pints of blood in 31 years. Most patients will use 1 to 2 pints during transfusions. What does this mean? It means that this blood drive has saved the lives of over 6,000 people. Without your wonderful donations, we cannot possibly have done so well. Your donations, even though COVID had made saving lives possible, thank you. Along with the blood drive, we have also hosted platelet drives. The platelet drive began in 2013 and ended in 2019. Our platelets drive was the largest and most successful mobile platelet drive in the service area. During the short years of 6 years, we collected over 1,750 pints of platelets and saved even more lives. Again, without your wonderful donors, this would not be possible. Thank you so much for your support. My wife and I and my niece both donated, and it's just a wonderful thing. If you can possibly help out to save lives, I'd appreciate it. Anything else? Nothing else? Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Moved. Second then.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Consent agenda. Anybody from the public have any comment about the consent agenda? Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Call for the vote again.
Well, I'll move to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're on to regular agenda. 3A, Board of Supervisors, discussion and possible action relative to the adoption and presentation of a resolution in memory of Kathleen Cat Everett for her life of service and accomplishment.
I'll take it from here, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Cat Everett was, as you'll find out, she did quite a bit, and she's Amador County's poet laureate at one time. And there's a nice resolution honoring her accomplishments and services, and I'd like to read that into the record now. So whereas Kathleen Cat Everett was born in Illinois in 1945 and passed away in Jackson, California in July 2023 at the age of 78, and whereas Cat became a registered nurse in Illinois in 1966 and moved to California around 1973 to be close to its mountains and the ocean. And whereas Kat was the proud matriarch of 4 generations with 3 biological children, 3 stepchildren she helped raise in their early childhood, 11 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren, as well as 3 stepdaughters. She was gifted when she married her surviving husband, Dennis Den McHugh. And whereas Kat led a rich and full life as an organic farmer, public health nurse, K-12 teacher, poet, songwriter, woodworker, deep-sea diver, interviewer, cookbook author, and musician. Whereas, after renewing her partnership with her high school sweetheart, Dan, in 2010, Kat worked with Dan to help restore the previously mothballed historic USS Iowa battleship to her former glory. And whereas, in 2012, Kat and Dan moved to Pioneer to retire and enjoy life among the beautiful mountains and rivers of Amador County, where they married in 2015. And whereas Kat quickly established herself as a beloved member of our community by sharing her gifts of songwriting, singing, poetry, friendship, hospitality, and food. And whereas Kat became a radio personality with community-based KQBM in West Point, where she produced and hosted 2 programs, Every Woman's Hour, featuring interviews with local women, and with Den, Down from the Mountain, featuring American music and Amador and Calaveras country musicians. And whereas in 2019, Kat and Den became hosts and organizers of the Amador County Arts Council weekly open mic nights, enabling local musicians and poets to share their talents with enthusiastic audiences. And whereas in 2018, the Amador County Arts Council appointed Kat as Amador County's first official poet laureate, a position through which she promoted poetry among adults and youth alike. And the Amador Ledger-Dispatch published hundreds of her poems for their readers' enjoyment. And whereas Kat lived a meaningful life defined by social, environmental, and political causes with an inclusive, embracing, and generous love and warmth for all, valuing and modeling authenticity, acceptance, self-worth, kindness, personal growth, compassion, and healing. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amador, State of California, that said board does hereby adopt this resolution in memory of Kathleen Kat Everett, recognizing her many talents and her years of loving service to the people, arts, history, and cultural life of California and Amador County.
Thank you, Supervisor Axe. Anybody would like to come to the podium and speak?
I'm Danny McHugh, Kat's husband. And I just want to thank you, very seriously thank you for what you're doing, because she's, all her life, she devoted herself to helping people and making people happy and content, and she's done it. And she turned my life around. We're both 65 when we got back together, you know. So I just want to say thank you again. I think it was, she deserved to have special effect on the people here. She did it everywhere. She was a health nurse for the Hells Angels and the Black Panthers, and counseled John Wayne on his cancer. I mean, she was totally a teacher as well, everything. She was just a godsend to me and to everybody here. I just want to thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Anybody else from the public?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Deborah Olgeen, and I'm one of the people that Kat affected and effected. I'm a musician, a recording artist, a newly minted recording artist, and I don't think that I would have gotten here to this point in my life if it hadn't been for Kat Everett and her guidance and her love and support. She became one of my dearest friends and a sister and a mother figure. And I have to tell you how grateful I am to Amador County for your recognition of Kat, because out of everybody I've ever known in my entire life, I've never known anybody that was more deserving of this honor. And I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom?
We do have a comment via Zoom.
Go ahead.
Caller, please go ahead when ready and identify yourself, please.
Yes, hello, my name is Clifton Painter, and I just wanted to say I'm very much in support of this resolution to memorialize Kat and her service. I knew her for a few years, and in just a few years, she became a dear friend and a great mentor and a great teacher for the community. She was quite a resource. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, call for the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution in memory of Kathleen Cat Everett for her life of service and accomplishment.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Supervisor Axe
Yes.
requested the honor of presenting the plaque. So would somebody, sir, would you mind coming forward?
Would you come down, Dan?
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for your loss. Okay, we go on to 3B, discussion with Caltrans District 10 Director with the possibility of involving the 88 project in the Pine Grove and other counties concerned.
Morning, Board. I'm
Morning.
Rich Vila, Public Works Director. Just as a refresher, at our meeting on May 23rd, we discussed, we had some discussion on our Highway 88 project in Pine Grove, and there was a request to have the Caltrans District 10 Director here. And so today, Director Dennis Agard and some key staff are here to be able to answer any questions that you may have on that project, as well as maybe other things you may have to want to discuss. Probably we'd be here to talk about, when we talk about item 3D on the agenda, if there's pertinent questions or what have you, they'd be here to be able to answer those questions from the technical aspect of the project and funding mechanisms and such. One thing of note before I wanted to let you know, we on yesterday received notice that we did receive the authorization to proceed to construction with that project. So that was something that's been sitting there for a while, and was kind of a challenge to get to this point. But just so I just wanted to let you guys know that we're at that point. So some of those hurdles that we had to jump and hoops to jump through, we got everything taken care of, and on Caltrans part, they got all the T's crossed and I's dotted and pushed the thing forward. So we're at that point. So I just wanted to let you know that's where we're sitting with that project. So
Interesting, that comes in the day before the director's visit, so,
Well, I don't know, you know, that's,
yeah.
make it as you may. So, anyway, Dennis Agar's here to answer any
forward, sir.
questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
Good morning, members of the board. Again, Dennis Agar, Caltrans District Director. Happy to be here today to address any concerns you have on the Pine Grove project. And of course, to make it worth the time we have here, I also asked a couple of key members to join with me, and if you don't mind if I introduce them to you,
Please do.
in case I need to come ask for some help with some of the answers. So I have, first of all, my Deputy District Director for Program Project Management and Asset Management, Grace McSile. Okay. And then also the actual Oversight Project Manager for the Pine Grove project is Navraj Jammu. Now they're both here to hopefully answer any of the details that you may have for that project. But again, thank you for the time, and thank you for getting me out of the district to come and drive this beautiful county.
Thank you.
Enjoy the time with you.
So do we have any specific questions we want to start out with?
So, in a 3-2 vote, the last couple of discussions on this, I think the two should start the questioning. Mr. Agar, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, member.
Mine is more a philosophical question and then funding source directed. Is that in 2015, I think is when this project started, and we put 7 billing cycles of LTF money into a pot that's allocated or reserved. I know you use different words for. But since then, we've had Snowmageddon and Ridge Road slid a foot, and we've had floods and culvert failures. And what might have seemed like a good partnership in 2015, at least in my opinion, is we, as a county, have so much local road damage that to take LTF funds and put them towards a state project doesn't seem very prudent on our part, where we took it from concept stage, shovel ready, to now it's construction ready, and spent about 6.2 million, and there's, I've heard, 8 million left to finish it. And my preference would be that our partnership, we got it shovel ready, and if you want to build it, it's your project, and we're going to have to concentrate on our local roads. That's the philosophical part. The tactical decision is, can we reroute the LTF funds that are committed, affirmed, whatever word you use, back to local projects at this point? I know we can't after construction starts, so this is a very critical time for this discussion. And I hate to be the first question, but everybody wanted to sit back, so.
Thank you, Supervisor Crew. Thanks for the question. I'll do my best to answer it in that first question, philosophical, as far as this journey we've been through since 2015. Let me just start by saying that Caltrans, and especially District 10, has always appreciated the partnership we've had with ACTC and also the Board of Supervisors here. With that said, we're always here to support the priorities of our local partners, and Pine Grove at the time was, and I hope still today, is one of your top priorities for your county. In regards to the funding, and I just wanted to maybe be more specific on the types of color of money that's allocated for this project. And as an oversight agency, working with the lead agency of the county, we've allocated, again, a lot of these funds are controlled by the county, Amador County themselves and the ACTC. First of all, we do have our state what we call State Transportation Improvement Program, which is the Regional Improvement Program share, and that is controlled again by each of the counties across the state by allocation. And we appreciate the fact that there was commitment made on that certain dollars, and that was 10.9 million of what we call in abbreviation RIP shares. Again, controlled by the local partners. Other dollars that was allocated to this was federal dollars, demonstration money, CMAQ money, highway improvement, HIP dollars, and of course, local funds that you guys all, again, gathered and committed to this project. And again, that's the other half of the dollars of the total, about $14 million project that's committed to this project. The federal dollars, those are, again, managed and requested by our local partners, and we're here to support that, and we funnel the processes to get those approved. And I do apologize that it's taken this much time over the last couple months to get the approval for you guys to go to construction. But we're here now, and I know we had our struggles internally, but we were able to fix that, especially during this last couple months. So yeah, it was coincidence. At the same time, it doesn't mean that it wasn't a priority for the district. So we continue to push for that. And as much as I like to take all the credit, that because I just came back from vacation and I said we got to get this done before this board, I really trusted my team that they were going to do it otherwise and regardless. So just coincidence that I'm here today. Back to the philosophical needs, and I totally understanding, especially this recent storms, right? This last December all the way through April, I think across the state, including the state department, suffered a lot of the storm damages that were faced today and having to fix, even continue to fix today. And so those are the top priorities that we make as a State Department as well. And as far as our priorities of where we should continue to take these funding, the way we want to look at that is that we really want to look at our customers, and of course, you all do that the same way, which is your constituents here in the county. We really believe, and Caltrans District 10 really believes that this particular project is very important to the community. Again, since 2015, we were working very closely to get a project out there and get the right project out for your community. This project is really about improving operations, as you understand, and enhancing the safety, not just the traveling public, but for the pedestrians and the bicyclists that going up and down that segment of Pine Grove. We feel that's really in line with our state priorities of safety, with our vision goal of 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries on all our state facilities. It does support our climate action and reducing congestion anywhere we can. And of course, helping with the active transportation with pedestrians and bikes that use, again, our facility, which is basically your facility through your community. So we take that seriously, and we see a lot of great benefits for this project. There were, like you mentioned, Supervisor Crew, it was expended already $6 million, and that was $6 million that we would hope that won't go to not lead to a project out there, whatever that may be. And we really like to see this project through, again, with the lead of the county. We're here to support it. We believe it's the right project for the community, and hope you all feel the same way. The second question, as far as what's can come back, the LTF, and all these other funding sources I mentioned to you. What I do know right now, especially for the federal dollars, specifically there's $1.9 million. If that's not spent through construction and projects not built, that has to be returned and paid back to the feds. So that's pretty much their restrictions and their regulations that we have to follow. When it comes to the STIP RIP funding, like I mentioned, Regional Improvement Plan, those allocations that have already been spent, unfortunately, we can no longer get returned back those dollars. The $6 million is pretty much considered sunk costs, right? any future dollars, the way the STIP guidelines work, and I could probably go to my team here if they tell me I'm incorrect, but the way I understand it, any unused STIP funding that was allocated for that fiscal year goes back to the statewide pot, and it gets redistributed across the state through formula distribution. So it doesn't go back to the county. And that's just how that process works. There may be some opportunities to find ways, and it may take time, and I can't guarantee it, but we would have to go to the California Transportation Commission to find ways to see if these dollars are not spent on this project, how do we reallocate it and get it back into the county? All right, I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm saying it's gonna be a big lift. And I can't guarantee at the end of the day it will happen. This is not the first time we've dealt with RIP projects and funding that was not spent, and it automatically just goes back to the state pot and gets redistributed by county by formula. Unfortunately, that's how the guidelines are written, and that's what we follow. And again, there's probably justified exceptions to that process. I can't guarantee how long it'll take, but there's always, if there's a will, there's a way, right? And we just gotta try if that's where the county and ACTC wants to take this project. So with that money, if you did not know already, the state, again, supports this project to help fill the funding gap. We've committed $1.25 million of our own, what we call State Highway Operations Protection Plan for from our district to this project. Again, that's our own direct funding, and it's tied to the co-op agreement that's later on in your agenda item. But it is our commitment to all of you that we are doing what we can to help fill in the gaps and get a project out to construction. Sorry for the long answer.
No,
That was pretty detailed, but it was a good answer. I don't know if it's a good answer, but it was well done.
wasn't very good, but
I mean, I was scared you might say you'd like to see the county remain the lead in the project. It is a state highway. And looking at it, I think it started off as a project, originally it started off a pipe dream. I think it was $200 million, probably before my time here. And it got down to like 40-some million, which is probably a pipe dream, or would have impoverished the rest of the county for the next 30 years. Then it got down even less, but the lesser amounts ended up being a pretty substantial amount that's been spent. I know quite a while ago, some of the board members and ACTC members were looking at it, and it's like, oh, we spent $1 million or $2 million, you can't stop now. It'll just be a few more million, you'll be the finish line. Well, what are we at now? $8-9 million, I think, been spent. Maybe, well, it's more than that, probably about 11. And we're still a long ways to the finish line. And I think I know at least one board member, and maybe some others are looking at, is we have Charleston Road is basically the white line's kind of gone. You got like maybe a 50-foot pretty steep embankment off the road. Fiddletown Road, I'm kind of embarrassed to drive down it, quite honestly. It's really bad, and you can see it's alligatoring, slumping. Our ditches haven't been cleaned in years in a lot of our county roads, and you know what that last storm did to our roads? Was hard on them. We've got culverts rotting out all over the place. There's one over there on New Chicago Road, a local guy and I. We took rocks and we put them in the hole because the hole wasn't straight down, it come on a slant. So we took a bunch of rocks and shoved them in there, and the road crew showed up with some cold patch and we patched it over. And it's still holding, but I think it was good. Probably made it through the winter, but I don't think you want to go through another winter. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And would it be nice to have a light at that intersection? Yeah, it really would. And I think maybe. I think Caltrans has a lot more flexibility than the county does in what they do or don't do as far as on a project. And I'd be very interested in seeing maybe Caltrans pick up some of that load on the state highway, maybe put in that light. that'd be a good deal. But as far as doing the whole project, if we had more money and we knew what to do with, I'd say, hey, great, full steam, let's go. But we've got critical infrastructure needs on county roads, and that's what I'm looking at. But so I'd like to know if you could help us, maybe get the Pine Grove project to fly, and you take over the lead, and probably be cost savings, because trying to go through Caltrans and we're paying your costs and administrative costs, and if you're doing in-house, it probably could be done more smoothly.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Supervisor Neto.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarification again, the project's total is 14 million. 6.2, as Supervisor Crew mentioned, was expended. The 8 million that's left is to help take it through construction and construction complete. With that all said, and with your comments, I do not disagree with your needs here in the county. This is your county. You know your county better than anybody else. So I'm not here to question any of your needs. I totally agree, support that idea. As far as taking over the project, you know, and taking the lead on the project, and I'm assuming, for clarification, when you say that, is it to help do the construction administration when it goes out to award, or take on a project different from this and deliver a project that's similar to this, but
Correct.
through state funding? So over the years, again, as you all do for your priority, we look at 10-year plan statewide and then a 10-year plan for our shop dollars here in the district. We get a distribution based on targets of the needs in our highway. Just like you all do, you have your prioritization. Our 10 years and our next 45-year projects are already programmed. So as you're asking us to take on this project, I can't come in here with confidence to say we can just take this on today and get it to construction tomorrow and then lead in and finish the project. It's not that simple.
No, I understand that. I'm not asking that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's clear that this is something that we'll have to attain. We'll get through our processes, as you all know, having to scope out this project again, prioritize it among all the other top priorities in our district and the state, and then programming it accordingly. And then wherever the funding availability comes in, you could be looking anywhere between 5 to 10 years from now to even get it to construction. So I just want to be clear that if that's something that the board and ACTC would like to do, then that's something that we'll have to entertain if the decision is not to move forward with this project. Again, our recommendation is to continue to finish this project. And again, back to the whole point of the consequences if this project gets deprogrammed, the amount of dollars coming back to the county may be very minimal. So the 8 million we're talking about could even just get back down to your local funding contribution. The STIP RIP dollars, the federal dollars, will have to return back to its original pot, unless there's a way we can ask for an exception. So if I may ask the board and maybe with ACTC to really evaluate those consequences. I know we're at this point where you're all trying to make a decision, but my recommendation is to have all the informed information you need to make a good decision. That's all I ask. Again, not trying to tell the board what to do, and just saying those are our recommendations and for your consideration.
Mr. Ager, my question is, as you know, we're a small county, and
Yes.
you see the consequences that can happen to us. We're also, actually staff is afraid of overruns. Every time we push things back, of course, it keeps going, the price keeps going up. And as we can't handle, anything over and above what we're doing right now. The money that is set there is all we have. We don't have anything else to put into this project, and no general funds, with a $115 million budget for the whole county, we don't have any extra funding to put into that. So my question is that would Caltrans, if there's overruns, be able to assist us in that aspect?
So, good question and valid understanding of risk. And through our partnership, and I think working closely with the county and ACTC, and through a co-op agreement, kind of talks about the rules of engagement, who's responsible for any cost overruns. What we also do as part of the project risk registry and with Navraj and whoever the county's project manager will be on this project, can develop upfront those mitigation measures for any cost increase that happen. So understanding the constraints that the county is faced with, we need to look and saying what are opportunities for additional, say, STIP RIP, because there is a process in place. If there's cost overruns on a STIP allocated project, those are contingencies that kick in. So I think to make the county board of supervisors with higher confidence, allow the team to come up with those contingency plans, what we'll do if there's a cost overrun, how do we get additional dollars, whether it's through federal, whether it's to STIP RIP, or even through our own shop dollars that's under our control. Those are all valid questions. We do go through that for every project, and to make even more higher confidence, and something that I'm working with my deputy is to develop a memorandum of understanding of how that process is going to happen. And it's going to be focused on transparency. That's, to me, is the biggest deal. Keep the board informed all of the time of how the project's progressing, what the cost risks are, and how we're going to address those risks as we move forward.
So basically, you're saying you would entertain it, but not a yes. You would look into it.
As far as taking over the project?
No, as far as helping the cost overruns. You see, there's a vehicle to address those possibly in the future, but no commitment.
I can't commit right today and say without that homework to be done among all the county and Caltrans staff to put that plan together, I'm not making an informed decision. I would hate to put the department in liability of something that I don't know for sure what we can and cannot do, but we definitely would go back and look at it.
I would hope we would be treated the same as other entities have been treated. We had the rug pulled out from under us with a project a couple of years ago where Stanislaus County had spent too much and was in the red, and our project was put on hold, and that money was given to Stanislaus County for their project. So I would hope that same scenario would play out for us if there is an issue. But just a couple things to address. You talk about a partnership.
Okay.
You know, partnerships work on getting things done. And whether it's Caltrans or Office of the State Fire Marshal or State General Services, what we're finding is state agencies are costing us millions of dollars because of delays in decision-making. Similar to this decision that we've been waiting for months now. You know, we operate on a budget and try to follow through as quickly as we can, and we're not getting that from state agencies, whether it be yours or others. So sometimes they're not timely decisions, and they even push us into the next construction season, which, as you know, most of the time ends up in cost overruns. But as far as partnerships too, this is a state highway, and one thing I think that grinds on the board a little bit is we're going to be assuming the responsibility for the sidewalks and the handicapped yellow strips that are being put in. I really don't think that should be our responsibility down the road. It's a state highway, and I think Caltrans should be assuming that, but we get the same answer on State Route 88 and Highway 104 going in Ione as far as an intersection improvement there. And we're being told that, well, if you want that, you need to do it with your money. It's a state highway, but we're being told Caltrans can't do it, and we assume the responsibility. You know, we talked a couple of years ago, coming from SB1, Caltrans gets, I think you said 40% of what they need. Well, we get about 30% of what we need every year from SB1. At that time, it was about $6 million, and we get about 2.1. Now I think that it's probably closer to $7 million what we need with the cost of construction going up. So while you don't get enough money, we get even less money. And we have a lot of needs in our county, as do most counties. So we appreciate the working relationship. I just don't want it to be one-sided where Caltrans always says, well, it's our highway, but you need to make the improvement.
Understood.
They probably have they have Caltrans manual you go by. What I'm looking at is, I think when this project started, I know the cost of went up exponentially, and the engineering right away just seemed like it would never end. And looking at it, I think the importance of this project versus the importance of maintenance for local roads, especially this last winter storm, has really changed. I think our needs on our local roads surpass the improvement project in Pine Grove. And if you look at it, as far as reducing congestion and base your time of travel through Pine Grove, off my memory, time of travel, it has almost no difference. It's not like it's really making a big change in traffic flow. I think that was the studies that were done on it, the traffic studies. And so that's why I don't support going forward this project. I think we have more pressing needs on local roads, and I do appreciate what help you've given us, but that's where I'm at, so.
Thank you, Supervisor Neto. Just for clarification on the operational improvements we're doing on the project, with the proposed signals, they would be synchronized to kind of help with the traffic flow that gets in and out of that community. And of course, what comes to that is improved safety for any pedestrians or bikes that are in that area. So you're right, it doesn't look like it's a whole big improvement where you're gonna save a lot of hours, but you will save seconds and minutes that sometimes make a difference for the traveling public. So that is taken in consideration.
It would be helpful, but on that same note, I mean, you've got a lot of intersections on Highway 88, whether it's in Pine Grove or Tri-Town or down Highway 88, Ione. I mean, there's intersections throughout this county on county roads and state roads that are dangerous. So you got Mount Zion Road, you've got Irishtown Road, you got Berry Street. There's all kinds of, even in Pine Grove where there's places, you gotta be careful driving. That's part of it on a road. I don't see where that's one critical street where it's much worse than many other roads up there.
Mr. Agar, I had a follow-up.
Yes.
You made a very good point early on that we're still talking, we might lose, you might be able to. Hypothetically, let's just play this little drama out that we say we don't want to go any farther with the Pine Grove project. We want to see if we can get our money back. The vehicle, if I understood you right, would be to just tap the brakes and go back to ACTC and have them study with your team exactly what money would be lost or what could be saved or what all the options are?
That was going to be my recommendation. Or
Instead of
my
making a
recommendation.
yes or no decision today?
Again, I don't want to.
Oh, you're not. Go ahead.
I'm just throwing this out there. I know that in the audience we do have the executive director of ACTC here, and I don't want to speak on his behalf. But what
He's
I
a
do,
big cheerleader for us.
I do again understand what is at risk is definitely the 1.9 million, the 4.8 million of RIP shares, and then of course our 1.25 million of SHOP funds. That's at risk here that may not come back to the county.
Okay. Yeah, my concern beyond that is the money that's already been spent on the environmental, on the right-of-way, on the plan specifications and estimates. We've got almost 7 million we've already spent. That's just would be lost money then.
Yes.
I'm kind of the opinion that turning back now is not the way to go. I know Caltrans probably doesn't want to take this project over, and that would have long-range implications for when it would get done, if it would get done in the future. But without throwing a monkey wrench in and trying to
and delay the project any longer, would Caltrans be able to look at the contractual obligations and possibly assume the responsibility for ongoing maintenance of the curbs and sidewalks?
If I understand correctly, we do have a executed maintenance agreement. A lot of our facilities normally don't have sidewalks, and the maintenance and operation of a sidewalk for us is not our cup of tea, but definitely that's something we could probably look into. I know we'll have to reevaluate what was agreed upon earlier for this project.
Yeah, because you do get 40% of what you need, and we get about 30%.
Yeah, understood.
Supervisor X?
No, I mean, well, you know, based on what Mr. Agar, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly,
Yes.
has said, there's no guarantee that we could get the money back and use it for any of the other, redirect it for any of the projects in the county. And that would be a long procedure, plus we would lose a lot of the funding. So I think we've been to the point of no return for some time. I'm glad that we are approved for construction, because we did miss this season. And cost escalations have really bitten us hard in this county. Not just this, but maybe you'll find out later on our jail project. And I know that it's probably, I don't fully understand what goes on at the state agencies. I know you guys are busy, but at the same time, every delay seems to cost us money. And then construction season, it's got to start April, May, and run until probably November, and then the rains can come, and so it's hard to say how much can get done during that winter period. So anyhow, that's just my feeling. I think that if we were going to do this, we should have done this 10 years ago. So
We tried.
Well, if the supervisors are done, I'd like to open up to the public. Anybody want to come forward? Okay, do we have anybody on Zoom? Oh.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Linda Berman. I live in Pine Grove, and I travel Tuesdays and Thursday mornings onto Highway 88 near the Pine Grove School. And I mean, you talk about a safety situation. There are cars lined up there, all the way backed up into the parking lot at Munnerland's and the Hoist, and people trying to turn left into the school, not being able to get in. I think that part of the project is really critical, both for the drivers on 88 and for the children going to Pine Grove School. So I really, I think a lot of what you've said past the point of no return. This project has been a long time in the making. I was there for a lot of the public meetings that gave input into the Pine Grove 88 project. I can't remember how long ago that was, probably too long. It was too long. Anyway, I just want to encourage you to move forward if we can with this project. I understand the budgetary constraints, and I also understand the shape of our roads. I don't like the shape of our roads either. But I think that the Pine Grove project is really critical and has been too long coming. So I encourage you to proceed with it if you feel that it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Back to the board for direction to staff.
is there, was this informational only, this particular item, or is this require
It's suggested action as direction to staff.
And then if you wanted to go, the third item would be approval of the cooperative agreement. third item on the agenda.
Right. So
Right.
we could just, run this as just as informational?
You could take that item real quick if you want to take it out of order and approve that cooperative agreement, but I wanted to make sure that
That's
we
3D.
talked about the jail with Mr. Agar before he left.
Right. Well, do we want to go to 3D or we want to go to 3C?
Let's just take them in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go to 3C, discussion of Caltrans Director regarding the county's encroachment permit along State Route 88 relative to the work for the jail expansion project. The permit has been extended several times due to delay from the state, and staff is being told that there's no further extensions and will be allowed beyond the end of the calendar year, despite the fact that the state of California is responsible for these delays.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, John Hopkins, General Services Director. I got the opportunity to meet Dennis out front and talk to him about this a bit. So he wasn't aware of our a need. He's given me his personal contact information, and I think at this point in time, we're going to stay in contact. I think you're going to look into this issue for me and get back to me, but the permit is actually through PG&E, right, who's giving us that information, that it might have to go through that process all over again if it is not extended. But after I explain the project to Dennis, I think he's got fairly good confidence that that will be allowed.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if that works too? Oh, I'm sorry. Again, Dennis Agar, Caltrans District Director. Thank you, and it was a pleasure to meet Mr. Hopkins this morning. And we had a fruitful discussion in regards to the challenges with the permitting process through PG&E on our encroachment permit. And the way I understood it was we have an existing encroachment permit that has been extended several times, and we're just asking to extend it one more time for the project to go to construction and get the work done. With that understanding, my commitment to Mr. Hopkins and the county is to go back and talk to my team this afternoon, address the issue. My team could not find this particular project because they were looking for a county project permit, but it was actually coming through PG&E. So he helped clarify a lot of our concerns and questions of this is a surprise to us here in the district. So now that we have our contact information, my commitment, as Mr. Hawkins mentioned, is that he has my direct line, my direct work cell, and if he needs anything that he's not getting through my staff, he's more than feel free to come and contact me.
My question is that it seems sometimes you got to go by the book. And if this is under your local assistance procedures manual and it says you can only go 3 extensions on a permit, is that going to be drawn in blood, or can that be extended by you?
So my permit engineer is delegation through me, but it does have to come through me at the end. The process for the encroachment permit, it's separate from the local assistance, by the way. And the way that works for anybody who has an encroachment permit, if it doesn't get approved by the district director or my delegate, it can be appealed through the director of Caltrans. So there's a quick process to elevate as necessary. I don't feel this is going to be that particular issue. It doesn't seem very complex to me. It's just a matter of communicating to the right folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a sideways question for you. This is not dealing with the jail, it's not dealing with the road, but other roads. This past year, we had our terrible storms. And I am the supervisor for the upcountry from Pine Grove up to Kirkwood. And we got nailed, flat out. And with snow and everything else, we have a couple roads that we needed assistance with. It was over what we could possibly do. And we put out through OES, and right off the bat, we were refused from Caltrans of assistance. You were overloaded. And part of my problem with this is we were trying, you couldn't get the road open. You didn't have the capability of opening up the road yourselves, with the amount of snow that was coming in. But your snow blower was coming down into the lower part of the area, just cleaning up, part of 88. And when I went to contact one of your local maintenance managers, he says, I can't help you. I'll be fired. And that, to me, was just a wrong statement, because you can't get farther up the hill because there was so much snow, but you're coming down and you're just chewing along a snow blower along there. And we're talking, I needed help with just a mile of road because it sits on a hillside and we can't put a truck through there, with a blade and that kind of stuff. It had to be blown. Well, we have one lone snow blower, and John, how old is that snow blower? So that's, that simple help would have been appreciated, but it was not there. And I'm hoping in the future, during an emergency situation, that we could get better communication, because that definitely did not happen this last winter. So that was just a statement, and I don't expect you to, have a recourse with me on this, but, to look at it for the next major storm we have, because we know we'll have something, and we have limited capabilities here, and we were way beyond when my poor trucks are running all the way down into Plymouth to pull snow, and then you're running, then the high country, we get kind of, because some of the people don't know how, I said Plymouth, but I meant Fiddletown, but, some of the people don't know how to drive down there in the snow, but we do have a little bit more idea, but we were inundated, and it hurt. So.
Mr. Chair, you're not asking for commitment, which I can understand, but I'd like to know if that's a possibility for Mr. Agar.
Before you answer, are you done with the jail?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Director Agar.
I just wanted to.
I'm going to get out of the spotlight.
I just wanted to go sideways on it for a little bit, but, just asking for a little bit of assistance, and that was during an emergency situation.
Yeah, thank you for the comments and for sharing the challenges that you all had. And I can't speak to that particular event, and how do we do better partnership in the future is what I'd like to focus on. And so I think that maybe before the next storm, whoever is the county representative to work with my deputy director for maintenance and see what type of opportunities we can have beforehand, and try to be proactive, and where there's flexibility, where there's not. Some of the challenges we faced during the storms, and appreciate you going through the process with Cal OES and having this storm, believe it or not, this is the first time that District 10 actually went to OES and asked for help ourselves. And we needed mechanics. I want to thank our Cal Fire team. They've actually provided us mechanics at our yards to help our equipment up and running and keep it going. And so we struggled this last storms as well, and definitely want to look at some other proactive measures where we can help each other out during the next emergency.
And I do appreciate that, but, and I attend most of your bi-weekly meetings,
Yes.
Your storm meetings that they have for up there. And that's all I'm looking for is, it's okay, can we just give me an hour? I mean, we're glad to pay for it, whatever hourly thing, but it was just certain situations, because it cuts off some of our folks from getting access for emergencies, and that's what I'm just trying to look at.
I appreciate you making the statement that the county's willing to, whatever you call it, reimburse, or.
Right.
There are mechanisms that we could do that, and we can get that agreed up front.
And that would be great. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Any way we can get this, and it's during emergency situations only.
Absolutely. We can do it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to take this meeting sideways. Yes, sir.
Well, we're here for a number of different issues too, but is there any movement at the state? I see the governor kind of kind of trying to work to make it easier to do projects by making the environmental requirements easier. I look at the Pine Grove project. We got a $15 million project, but it costs almost 2.3 for the environmental. Do you see any movement in that area by the state as far as trying to legally minimize the requirements?
I'd like to say yes. In the last infrastructure package that the governor did pass, they had some legislative proposals to talk about just that. If there's areas in the environmental process that can be streamlined. I don't have the details in front of me, but that's available to anybody if they want to look it up. But that is in place, and now we just got to utilize these opportunities that are out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Supervisor Forrester, just to add on, I believe I read that there was a legislation that a state senator was bringing forward to try to reduce the use of CEQA as like a weapon against, you know, any kind of development at all. So I think that, you know, the pendulum may have swung too far in one direction. And so maybe it's time to find a new kind of happy medium with that.
Well, I thank you, sir. And so that was direction to staff, and I think,
Thank you, Director Igor.
yes. So direction to John and get coordination on that one. So we'll on to 3D. We've kind of talked about this one already.
Mr. Chairman, I would add that life is full of risks, and we're talking now about adding a ballot measure probably next year to add to the sales tax for road improvements. We're going to get that shoved down our throat that we spent $14 million on a state highway. Why would I let you have any more sales tax? You gotta stop and take a chance. I mean, we lost the money. I get that's a bad deal. I didn't realize that. But if we could get some of it back, to the young lady here in the front, I agree, the stop sign and the egress for the school need to be fixed. I would support that. That's about a $3 or $4 million project, and we could put the rest back in county roads. But just to say, we made an agreement in 15 and we're gonna stick by it without trying to negotiate the change, I think is very short-sighted. It's given up.
No, I
My
agree
2
with you.
cents.
That's why I was asking the director if they can maybe do a project on a stoplight there. I mean, that's something, hey, I would support, but the whole thing and the cost,
No, but you're
We
not
need- we need-
guaranteed
we need
the
to- we need to stop
funding
the
coming
bleeding.
back.
you know, it's,
Big bad deal, but you lost 6, you're gonna throw 8 more at it
Well,
and not improve a county road. You haven't gained a thing.
Well, you're going to make some pretty substantial safety improvements, and we may
Right.
disagree on this. I think the improvements at the school are going to be good improvements.
I do too. I agree with that part.
I agree they're good, they're safety improvements, but the thing I would look at is, okay, we're making some safety improvements on a state highway, not huge. What about the condition of our county roads where you got culverts that are they're rotting and they're washing out? Jeff Campbell, when they told me there was one washed out in New York Ranch, was like, hey, the county needs to stop that right now. There's like a hole, I don't remember how many feet deep it was under the culvert, under the blacktop where the culvert had failed from rot and was basically a big old sinkhole. That's pretty direct public safety. That situation's happening multiple places throughout the county. So say one's public safety, you know, on Highway 88, sure, but we got some major public safety on our county roads, and we need that funding, I think, desperately to address it. So it's not just public safety in Pine Grove, it's public safety throughout the county. And the county roads you've got chuck holes, people try to dodge chuck holes. Maybe possibly they might be on the wrong side of the road and somebody else comes around that turn because they're trying to miss a chuck hole. Our ditches aren't clean. We had, we had water running across the road in some places. That water turns into ice. People are traveling those roads. When you go across an ice sheet, that's a pretty direct public safety in my opinion. So I think we need to, put this, basically turn this project over to Caltrans and say, we'll help Caltrans any way we can. That's, the way I see it.
You've already heard that it's going to take 5+ years at least to get this reprogrammed. And we've already spent very close to $7 million on this project. I think that's what voters are going to say. You wasted $7 million on this and you didn't complete it for the additional 8. We're at construction point, guys. I think it's time to move.
Okay, anybody, public comment on this item? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion from the board?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendations, to approve the cooperative agreement in its current form, and authorize the chairman to sign the final version of the agreement by what signature?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, first and second. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Under discussion,
Yes, sir.
I'll state for the record now, by the time this thing's done, you'll probably have 25% more beyond what we figured, put into it, overruns and whatever else you can find there. So it's gonna be a hole, it just keeps on getting bigger.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No?
Okay, it's a 3-2 vote. Did we need a 4/5 on that one? Okay. So
By money.
3D passes. On to 3E, Public Health Oral Health Presentation.
Thank you, Dennis, and your.
Yes,
Your.
Mr. Agar, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for the
And your staff.
clarifications. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Anna Schrode. I'm with Amador County Public Health. I'm a health educator. I'm here today with Public Health Director Joanne Hassan and Program Manager Christian Tucker. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to present on our oral health local program. Before we get going, I would like to spend just 2 minutes talking about some oral health 101. A lot of the people that I present to are not familiar with the bacteria most responsible for tooth decay. It's Streptococcus mutans. This bacteria is not something that we're born with. It's something that we spread from one person to another through saliva. So just a few pictures there, by sharing food and drinks, by kissing, even sharing eating utensils. So Streptococcus mutans, this bacteria lives in the plaque in our mouth. And plaque is that film that develops on our teeth throughout the day. If not brushed away or flossed away, this bacteria will really populate in the plaque. And then we feed it sugars and carbs, and it turns into acid. Acid is what, given time, will damage our enamel of our teeth and the roots, and leading to tooth decay and gum disease. I wish I could say that our mouth is the only thing that suffers by gum disease and tooth decay, but it actually impacts the rest of our body. It can cause chronic inflammation that has been linked to different medical issues like heart disease, respiratory disease, pregnancy complications, diabetes, and even stroke. The good news is that there's something that we can do. By brushing twice a day with fluoride toothpaste, we want to brush for 2 minutes each time we brush, and then seeing your dentist twice a year. You can see that formula is just 2 by 2 by 2. And then lastly, we want to make sure that you brush your teeth daily. If we do these things, we can help maintain a good oral health and in return maintain a healthier body. So now on to our program. We have a local oral health program. It's called the Dental Health Partnership. It was established in 2018, funded by the California Department of Public Health, and using funds from the Proposition 56, which is the Tobacco Act of 2016. Our Dental Health Partnership has over 32 coalition members. They represent agencies from all across our county. great group. We also work with several community partners. You can see that big giant tooth there, that's our mascot. We call him Chewy the Tooth. There he is at First Five Amador at one of the toddler play groups. We work with our local libraries. You can see on top there, we donated several books because they didn't have books on oral health. We do story times, different things like that. The bottom one is a collaboration between Amador County Unified School District, Nexus, and Public Health. We gave presentations to parents on youth vaping and the dangers of that. Real quick, if you can just go back one more. I want to give a shout out to Cedar Creek Smiles. They're up there, their logo's up there on that right-hand corner. This is a group of women who raise money yearly to provide direct dental services for children in Amador County that don't have insurance or have high deductibles, things like that. So this is a great group. Next. Some other things that we do in the county. We provide resources to our local food bank. You can see there where we attend food distribution sites. We have an assessment going on there at the Hispanic Health Fair. We were fortunate enough, there wasn't a lot to do during COVID, as you can imagine, with outreach. So we were fortunate enough to have resources, dental health resources, available at the different clinics. That one there, as you can see with all the seats, we were at a winery, and we served over 400 people and were able to provide them with resource materials and toothbrush kits. You can't really see the whole picture, but me and Donna Jackson, I'm in the Chewy Tooth. Donna Jackson, we're providing nutrition education to Head Start children. Again, another event with Chewy the Tooth. The center there is just an example to show you guys what's available to other agencies. I actually left a bag with your clip here to pass out to you afterwards, just giving you an example of the different educational material. We have activity books, dental health kits, because we can't expect people to have good oral health unless they have the tools to do that at home. And then lastly, as you can see there on the right-hand corner, that's our entire team of outreach for public health, and we were just posing at this April's Celebrate Our Children event. So, one of our main priorities in our program is the state-mandated kindergarten oral health assessments, otherwise known as AB 1433. We call it COA for short. It's quite a mouthful. Amador County, since we kept track about 2018, has not done a very good job as far as returning these kindergarten oral health forms to our schools. So what happens is children, they are registered for kindergarten. In their packet, they receive a COA form that has to be taken to the dental provider. Their child has their dental assessment. The information, the form is taken back to the schools, and then we collect all that data and enter it into a state recorded data system. As you can see there, Amador County has not done a very good job. When you compare it to our neighboring counties, we're at the bottom of the pile. And so after promoting this COA form return rate, it wasn't working. So we just decided in 2020 that we had to do something different. Got rid of that. So we developed a dental health assessment program. We called it Amador Kids Smile. With our partners, Plymouth Elementary School, we piloted the program there back in 2020. We were so successful, we took all of our data to the district, and they decided that we would expand the program to all 7 elementary schools, and that just happened this previous year. We do not have funding in our program for direct services, so we really rely on our local dental providers to help us get this done. This was the 3 groups that really came together last year to help us pull this off. As you can see, we have Carr Family Dentistry. Dr. Carr, I don't know if any of you have met her, she is in that bottom right hand in the center with the purple scrubs. She helped us with 2 of our clinics. We have Jackson Creek Dental Group. Their ladies are off on the left-hand side. I did not have a picture of Stenson Womack, Dr. Womack, so we put his family sign, but he did also help us with 2 of our clinics. And here's just A couple pictures of what our clinics look like. We have the equipment. We didn't have to purchase it ourselves. It was donated to us through the Dental Transformation Initiative a few years ago. So, in 1 year alone, we changed our COA form return rates. Just one more click. We improved it, changed it from 53% to the whopping 82% there. It changed everything for us. Another success would be that we improved the amount of kids that actually got that dental assessment. On these forms, you can waive it. Parents come up with different reasons for why they don't want their child assessed. But we changed all that by offering this free dental assessment to all kids. And I didn't say that the assessments are for kindergarten and third grade. Those are the grades we focused on for this past year. Again, from 40% to 70%. So it was very successful, and I'm proud of all the work we've done on that. So when we do dental assessments, I want everyone to know what we're looking for. We have a classification system. It's level 1, 2, and 3. The top is a healthy dentition, meaning that child doesn't have any previous dental work and they don't have any active cavities. The level 2 is kids that actually have decay active right there at the assessment or have had previous work, meaning restorations, fillings, things like that. And then level 3, I know it's kind of hard to look at, but these children have extensive decay. They usually have infections and abscesses. We assessed 431 students last year in kindergarten and third grade. We had 41% was level 1, meaning that they're doing a great job. Unfortunately, we had 53%, which was 226 students, had level 2s, meaning that at the age of 8 and probably 5, they already have active decay in their mouths and it's untreated. Level 3, we had 27 children. This to me is a little glaring. I mean, most people I think would say out of 431 students, 27 students having excessive decay it's not critical. But when you think about the fact that we have about 4,000 students in Amador County, the whole district, and 431 students is about a 10% sample. If we add a 0 to that 27, now we're looking at almost 300 children in our community who have extensive decay. And one of the things on a level 3 is usually you have pain associated. So now we have almost 300 children that have pain every day. They probably miss a lot of school, so the school doesn't get those funds. When they are at school, they probably can't concentrate because they're in pain. And also, not to mention what it could do to their self-esteem. You know, lack of wanting to smile and things like that when you have your mouth looking like that. So this year our focus is continuing the assessments, but also trying to get a coordination care. So when these children have these urgent dental needs, we're going to get them referred. So we're working with an MOU with the school to try to get, get through all the HIPAA and the FERPA and trying to get these kids seen. Amador County does not have medical dental providers that are accepting patients. It's been that way for a while now. And so we really tried to bring services to our kids. We started with Big Smiles Mobile Dental Services. We've been working with them for about 5 years. And this group schedules visits to each of our schools, probably twice a year. This is what we try to do. Students, therefore, don't have to be taken out of school. They can be seen right on site. Parents don't have to miss work. So it's really a convenience for them. You guys probably already heard of this one. We were on the hosting committee for the California Care Force. We helped raise funds and serve 168 dental patients. We brought the Smile Mobile Dental Van, which is sponsored by Smile California, a medical dental program. to bring a mobile dental van to Amador County. We saw about 50 adults. They were either had Medi-Cal, but mostly were uninsured in our community, and we gave them free services. I think there was 5 visits to about 50 people. So those are some of the things that we've done in the past. A couple of things that we're working on currently is 2 different programs. On the right there, you see a sealant campaign. So Medi-Cal Dental, or Small California, has invited Amador to participate in their campaign, meaning that they're going to come to our community and provide free sealants for all children. We're focusing on ages 6 through 9. Sealants, I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's just a coating that goes on our molars to help prevent decay. And then also we have the Tooth Fairies of California, which is on the left-hand side, and we are trying to work with them. They're a nonprofit. We're hoping, one of the biggest things with any program is sustainability, and without having funds for direct services, we're trying to find people who can provide those services. So Tooth Fairies of California will be taking over all the Head Start assessments this year. We're working on an MOU right now. And we're hoping, if that works out, to bring them to the Amador County schools, like the TKs and the kindergarten, and they can take over that part for us next year. So that's all I have for you. Thank you again for this opportunity. And we've done a lot, but there's a lot further to go, and just trying to improve the oral health of our county. So thank you.
For the presentation.
All right, thank you.
A question for you before you leave.
Yes.
Are the Tooth Fairies and Smile California connected at all, or not?
No, they are not.
Totally.
One's Medi-Cal Dental, which is a state program, and then the other one is a nonprofit, and she's currently applied for funding to try to help our community with these issues.
So Smile California is still going to be doing things too?
Yes, Smile California is the campaign name of Medi-Cal Dental, so those two are one and the same.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else from the public want to ask any questions? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, that will complete that. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're also going to go on recess for the Board of Supervisors, and we will come back and do the Amador Fire Protection District meeting at 10:32. So we're going on break. Thank you. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. Public matters not on the agenda. Discussion items. Only no action will be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within a jurisdiction of AFPD Board of Directors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and/or committee for a report and recommendation for possible action at subsequent board meeting. There's a 5-minute limit. Anybody, public want to come forward? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, we are opening the public hearing. Resolution of AFPD Board of Directors approving the engineer's report, confirming the diagram and assessment, and the orderly levy of AFPD Fire Protection Emergency Response Service Assessment for fiscal year 2023-2024. Chief, you want to start us out, please?
Just that, obviously, we have Chris Coulter here from SCI Consulting. If we have any questions regarding the engineer's report, et cetera, the objective of having Chris here is to answer any of those, and then certainly our AFPD staff is available for those questions as well.
Supervisors, or directors, I should say, excuse me. Any questions?
Me.
Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public want to ask? Yes, sir.
Bill May. I have one comment. Let's throw out this sham election and start over and conduct a fair election. Have the elections department conduct it, because that's what they do, and this is a sham. You probably saw the article in the Ledger Dispatch. Back 10 taxation is wrong. This is wrong, gentlemen. Nobody is going to believe this was an honest election. Anybody I've talked to, none of them. They think this is open and transparent. Throw it out, start over, have elections conducted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on Zoom? Yes.
Morning. My name is Cindy Gramboys. I'm a member of the community. I applaud AFPD for an honest election. I disagree with what was just said. This has been discussed, this election, holding it since last September, October, at open public meetings where every member of the community had an opportunity to come forth and speak on this matter. I know this because I've been there almost every month as a member of the community, having input. Now, I don't always agree with this board or any other board or individual members, but I have always been given the opportunity to have my voice heard, and I don't understand why anybody's complaining. It was all openly discussed. A majority of people voted for it. Congratulations, AFPD.
Thank you.
I will
Yes,
say
sir.
one thing. The majority of people that voted for it, but only 33% of people, I think it was roughly, something like that. 33.72% of the ballots returned, which I think, yeah, it did pass. I think a lot of people threw their ballots in the garbage. So I'm not voting for that and threw them away, but that was their mistake. It is as it is, but so majority of the people didn't vote for it. Majority of ballots that received back were for it.
That's pretty much the way it works in any election.
Come forward, sir.
If you look at the amount of people that vote.
Yes, my name is John Applegate. Brian, you're exactly right. 33.72% of the ballots were returned. That's terrible. I think people that received these notifications did not realize what it was because it wasn't coming from the elections department. So of the 10,319 ballots that were mailed out, only 20.8% of those ballots voted in favor of this measure. Yeah, I don't think this is right. nor do I understand where a weighted average comes from on a piece of property. So I don't think that was ever explained to the people. Just my comments. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, sir.
How are you, John?
Good.
So I just want to speak about the vote, and certainly Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, as his group conducts these votes up and down the state. My understanding is the average, and I'm only speaking for this benefit assessment, but the average return rate is anywhere from 30 to 40% on ballots. And I think our 33%, at least based on the info I have, sounds like that's pretty average for what occurs up and down the state with these types of elections. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you. And we did talk about the weighted average. I understand that can be a little confusing or contentious at times, but I just want to remind you that that is not set up by Amador Fire District or SCI. That was passed in law by Proposition 218 in 1996 in an effort to make it more fair. So if you were being assessed a higher rate, your vote counted for a little more than somebody assessed at a lower rate. So that's where those two come from. I just want to try to provide some clarification there.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Thank you. Morning, sir.
Steve Dippo, Amador County resident. I have a lot of questions about this, but I'm going to go to what I think are the most important. Does this set a precedent for any other entity to, let's say, disregard their budget and go for a ballot measure to increase the funds for their operating capacity for a fiscal year?
AWA does this all the time for the
That's
water
right.
agency. AWA, our water agency that provides water for a lot of the county, does this process.
I've never seen a ballot from them.
They put it out there, except that they do it a little bit differently, but yeah, it's still the same.
Well, you wouldn't see a ballot unless you're an AWA customer.
Oh, okay. It seems strange that, I mean, due to my research, the fire district received $1.7 million for fiscal year 22-23. And for some reason, they felt that wasn't enough. I've been with the state, and a lot of times we felt our budgets weren't enough, but we never were able to go on a ballot and ask people for more money. So, scenario, if I'm the superintendent of public works, and I've got a budget, obviously, for the fiscal year, and I feel, well, my guys, I trained them, they're good guys, they're reliable, and I don't want them to go to another county or state entity for employment. So can I just say, I'm going to put a ballot out to vote for people to increase my budget because I don't think I have enough money to operate, or I want to take care of my men and raise their pay? Is this a precedent? I mean, can anyone just go on the ballot and say, I need more money?
AFPD is a special district, so they can do an assessment in this aspect. The county can't do that. You can't just raise tax, your property tax or anything else. So,
And the benefit assessment really hasn't kept up with inflation. So the benefit assessments for other neighboring agencies are similar to what now AFPD has voted for.
Well, I just find it kind of distressing that an entity has to go to a vote to get more money when they have a budget that was put together for that particular fiscal year. I mean, now we're going to be increased by what, 3% per year for no matter what the budget is?
I don't think it's not mandatory, that's 3%
It
every
is
year.
not, and it can only go up to 3%, but that would have to be approved year to year by this board. That's not automatic.
Is it true that property owners with multiple acres were assessed a very minor amount, a penny per acre?
Depends on the use of the acreage.
And what's that?
If it's open space, yeah, it's assessed at a very minor rate. And if it's agricultural, has grapes on it or something of that nature, it's assessed at a different rate. That's correct.
Okay, is it true that Tuolumne County was involved with this and counted the ballots?
No, I'm not aware of Tuolumne County being involved in this.
Wasn't the University Women, I think?
League of Women Voters was involved.
League of Women, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
There's
sure where
also
they were
observer-
from. I don't know if, were they from Amador or Tuolumne County?
And there
They
were
were.
some public observers too, Steve.
And there was, yeah, there was also public observers.
So just to be clear, the answer is yes then. That League of Women Voters was from Tuolumne County.
Why was that? Why didn't our registrar of voters count them?
I'm not sure. I think that's who responded to our request, yeah.
Well, we've got a registrar of voters in this county to handle elections and ballot counting. What's going on here? Why are we going to Tuolumne County and have people count our ballots? The registrar of voters didn't even have any, why weren't they involved in this election?
All you're doing is going to an independent group to count the ballots. It's nothing more than that. We could have gone, I guess we could have found an independent group in Amador County.
What is our registrar for?
Yeah.
Why didn't they handle this whole election? by
Because
the
it's
way?
an assessment, not a general election.
And why is one ballot per household sent when there's multiple people in that household that live and own and reside on that property, that have a say in the vote?
Because it's per property, not per person in the property.
I know that, but why?
So it'd go to the registered owner of that property. That's what the ballots were
Well,
mailed.
there could be 2 or 3 registered owners of the property.
Chris, can you speak to that? I'm gonna bring up Chris Coulter from SCI to answer that for you, sir.
Chris Coulter, SCI Consulting. Thanks for having us here today. So ballots are mailed to the registered owner, as Chief Withrow said. And in a situation where a property owner were to desire separate ballots for all the different ownerships under a property, we can accommodate those requests. That's an extremely rare request. I can't actually remember that ever happening. But in that case, you know, that is something that's possible. It would be doable, but in almost all cases, property owners vote as a single property owning entity.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that property owners, in plural, should be able to vote on a ballot considering a tax assessment, period. Simple as that. And I've talked to a lot of people, I'm sure Bill's talked to people that they never got a ballot and they're property owners.
Depending if they're in the city, you know, if they're in the, you know, city district or not. This is just for the county.
Yeah, I live in the county, so a lot of county people didn't get them.
Are they renters or property owners?
What's that?
Would they be renters or property owners?
Property owners I talked to didn't get ballots, period. I mean, I didn't talk to 100 people, I talked to a few, but if there's a few, there's gotta be more than that. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, I think it was, it just wasn't a tight ship, the way the whole thing was handled. And it can be increased yearly up to 3%, which over 10 years, that's 30% potentially. And Proposition 13, yeah, this is an assessment. but it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It comes on the tax bill. These assessments come on your tax bill, so let's not play semantics, it's a tax. Do you not agree?
The way it's labeled is a benefit assessment.
But it's on the tax bill, so it's really a tax.
It goes out on the tax bill for administrative purposes for collection.
Whatever you call it, it's an amount people pay. Whether you call it a tax, fee, levy, assessment, it's something people are being charged.
I understand that, but I don't think that goes.
Excuse me, Nicole Cook, Board Clerk. Just a reminder, public hearing is set for 3 minutes, and he's exceeded 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Sir, I'll offer up to you, if you'd like to come by the office, I'd be happy to answer more of your questions.
Okay, anybody else from the public? Oh, Bill?
You're pretty well bound and determined that you're going to pass this. So my suggestion to everybody out there that disagree and believe it's a fraud and should not have been conducted the way it was, I suggest you file a lawsuit against the county at AFPD. Thank you.
Hey, Bill, if I may ask you a question respectfully, are you in our district? Do you live in our fire district? You?
No.
Oh, copy, thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Move to close the public hearing.
Okay.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. 401.
You're going to abstain to close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at something else. Yeah, I'll vote yes.
Okay, 5-0.
I was looking at DA investigator stuff.
Oh, that's coming up.
Okay. Back to the board again.
Move to approve Resolution 2023-11.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Supervisor Neto?
Yeah, I'm not,
You going to abstain again, or are you going to go vote no?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. 5-0-1. What's that?
4-0.
Oh, 4-0, excuse me. Thank you. And this will be the end of this meeting. Thank you very much. And now we're going to bring the Board of Supervisors back out of recess. We're working on 3F, DA request to increase revenue and expenditures.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Todd Reby from the District Attorney's Office. Also, my Chief Investigator, Brandon Cohn. I think what I'm going to start with is a little bit of history about the District Attorney's Office Investigative Bureau. The first investigator was Martin Ryan. That happened under Guy Reynolds' administration. I believe it was 1978. And Mr. Ryan continued in that position through the Gail Cuneo administration. The current bureau at the Amador County District Attorney's Office has almost 25 years' experience across the board. We're the most experienced law enforcement entity in Amador County in terms of the number of years and the amount of training that they've received. That's a fact. Getting back to Martin Ryan, there's a long history in this county with the District Attorney's Office Investigators Bureau of giving assistance to allied law enforcement agencies upon request. It started under Martin Ryan. I spoke with Martin just recently. He remembers assisting with DOJ in marijuana grows. He remembers assisting quite frequently with the Amador County Sheriff's Office. In fact, he relayed a couple of memories where he was with Emmett Retagliata and former Sheriff Prismich when he was a deputy in a high burglary area, hidden in the bushes, thinking that maybe the burglar would return. They didn't, but he remembers that. Also with the Jackson Police Department, and that continued through Gail Cuneo. Art Price became the chief investigator, and again, under the Dave Richmond administration, the DA's Investigative Bureau continued in their assistance to allied law enforcement agencies, most notably with the Amador County Sheriff's Office and Jerry Grant Fry. It was a double homicide. Both Art Price and former Sheriff Blake, who was with the DA's office at the time as a DA investigator, helped in that case, were instrumental in getting several interviews accomplished. Also, in the Dennis Palmer murder case, the Amador County Sheriff's Office received assistance from our investigative bureau, and also with ACSO in the Dean Bandera Ross case, and of course Mule Creek State Prison. We've always assisted since its inception in 1982. Art Price continued through the Solani administration, most notably in a suspected arson in Jackson Police Department, a suspected rape with Jackson Police Department, Sutter Creek Police Department money laundering and fraud case, of course Sutter Creek Brown Act assistance, and Mule Creek State Prison. In my administration, Art Price, Tom Sage, Noel Dunn, Mike Martin, and now Brandon Cohen have served as chief investigators of the District Attorney's Office, and I have continued that tradition of allowing my bureau to assist allied law enforcement agencies upon request. Most notably, Sutter Creek Police Department in Burgo, which was a matricide, very nasty matricide that occurred in Sutter Creek. Also in Sutter Creek, there was an arsenic poisoning. At the time, there was some debate as to what the cause of that was. We were able to find out that it was suicide. Sutter Creek, we were asked to assist, and we did in a hit and run. Sutter Creek, we were asked to assist in an investigation against the then mayor, Randy Aspinall, and we completed that investigation and that prosecution. Sutter Creek Brown Act request to investigate. There was Ione, a homicide, sexual abuse, numerous complaints regarding Brown Act violations. Amador County Sheriff's Office, JPD, were asked to perform officer-involved shooting investigations, and we've done that on a number of occasions. And also Mule Creek. Getting to our request, all local law enforcement agencies in this county and across the state, they train for mass casualty, critical incidents, hostage situations, etc. Any number of Amador events could turn deadly. The fair, Dandelion Days, July 3rd, just to name a few. I'm sure that the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office and the Gilroy Police Department were not expecting a mass shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, but that's what happened. And they were trained for such an event when it happened. You have to keep your finger over that button. This is something that all law enforcement agencies in all counties in California do. As far as the uniforms, it's a matter of officer and public safety, and also county and individual and department liability. There was a study by the Council of Criminal Justice Task Force on Policing in 2020. It's a national study. And what it determined was that unless engaged in covert operations, officers should be dressed in standard uniforms while executing warrants, particularly if the premises are occupied, so that they are clearly identifiable as law enforcement and remove the impression that the service of the warrant is assumed by the occupant to be a burglary or home invasion. This practice minimizes the potential for officer harm from occupants using deadly force against assumed intruders. Also, under California law, Penal Code Section 830.10, and California officers are required to wear a uniform with a badge or nameplate that clearly has the number or the name of the officer. That's the industry standard for district attorney's office investigative bureaus as well, not only regionally but across the state. We're not talking about uniforms like you just saw with the Fire Protection District or the Sheriff's Office or any of the police departments. In fact, Chief Investigator Cohen is wearing something very similar to what the DA investigator's uniform would look like, sans a printed insignia stating that with our symbol and also the fact that it's police. What happens when you don't identify yourself or have a consistent, recognized uniform? Well, there's some examples of search warrants that have gone wrong. Catherine Johnson, Atlanta, Georgia, 2006, 92-year-old lady. She sees they're undercover police, but she doesn't know that. They're outside. They're not in any kind of uniform. They don't identify themselves. The door is being broken into. She fires, thinking her home is being invaded. The police return fire, killing Johnston. That case settled for $4.9 million. Breonna Taylor, Louisville, Kentucky, 2020. Officers were executing a search warrant. They say they knocked and announced. The boyfriend of Breonna Taylor said that all I heard was loud banging, no announcing, fired through the door, return fire, killed Breonna Taylor. That case settled for $12 million. David Hooks, Georgia, 2014. Police officers not in uniform during search warrant execution. Hook's wife, thinking the police were burglars, wakes up her husband who armed himself and was shot and killed, settled for an undisclosed amount. So it goes on and on. I could give hundreds of examples of these, but I think you get the picture that we do execute warrants, not only with ACNET, but we execute warrants and assist other law enforcement agencies in the execution of those warrants. We also go to serve subpoenas on the number of trials and preliminary hearings we have. We don't know what's on the other side of that door. We don't know if they have a meth lab in the back. We don't know that they may have warrants out for their arrests. We have to be properly identified, and we have to be able to protect ourselves for our safety, the safety of the public. And this is a good opportunity for me to introduce to you Chief Investigator Cohen. He was selected with a contested interview panel. He rose above and beyond, and we're very excited to have him in this position. The request that was made for the revenue increase and expenditure and the items therein was the product that I knew about, and it was my direction to Chief Investigator Cohen to take a look at our department. You're coming in, you got fresh eyes, you got 22 years of experience. Tell me what you need, and I'll go fight for it. And that's what he did, and I'll have him address the items that we're requesting.
Good morning, Chairman, the rest of the board. Appreciate you hearing
Morning.
us today. I'm never going to be as articulate as the DA. That's why I didn't get into law. So I would appreciate maybe if you could steer me in the direction of some of the items that you might want further explanation on, and maybe I can provide the technical or statistical data for that.
So far, you're giving him a run for his money.
Any supervisors have any questions?
I do. Todd, you listed all of the past chief investigators.
Right.
Why didn't they request this before?
What's that?
Why didn't they make this same request?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, the law's changed a lot, too. These cases that I'm mentioning, they are mostly past 2000. Breonna Taylor was 2020. The Johnson case was 2006, and again, out of state. But
You're
the laws,
talking 15 years.
you know, I can't speak for that. I know that it wasn't requested. I know that Investigator Cohen has looked around at what the industry standard is, what they're doing in El Dorado, what they're doing in Placer County, what they're doing in San Joaquin, what they're doing in the other counties that surround us. And this is not something that is out of the norm. In fact, it's out of the norm not to have it.
We don't need to do what every other county does. I mean, we could do what Calaveras does all the time too, but we don't. You know what, in most of these cases though, it's law enforcement.
Right.
It's police, sheriffs that are doing the search warrants. How many times does the DA investigator go in there without law enforcement? I know most of them used to be law enforcement with the sheriff's department or police department, but
I'm going to defer to Chief Investigator Cohen.
If I can answer that, sir. So we're not conventional law enforcement, nor are we trying to become so. We're not trying to expand our operational base nor empire build here. What our primary function, one of our primary functions as the district attorney offered before, is serving subpoenas outside of this county. The sheriff's office serves all the subpoenas through their civil deputy in this county, but outside of the county, whether it be Stockton, Corcoran, any outside county subpoena is served by me and my staff. The unfortunate part about that is that, as he said before, the world, if you look around, is getting much more dangerous. And even though we might be serving a subpoena for a witness in a case that has no adverse reaction, that witness is unknown to us as far as their lifestyle, what potential things they possess in their house. And as you look through a blind and you're seeing the way DA's offices have been dressed in the past, all you're seeing is a button-up shirt with a gun exposed at the bottom. It's very hard to conceal the barrel of a gun in that outfit. What we're talking about is simply this outfit, which I think you'll find is very consistent with the probation department, with the sheriff's office investigation team. It's a basic polo shirt, khaki pants. What we're talking about is the badge of our office, not the badge of the sheriff's office or the police department, the badge of our office with our name and rank on that. The patches that go on the shoulder is for a simple purpose. It gives us one layer of protection that allows the people that are on the other side of that door to know that we are law enforcement. It gives us the cloak of a professional operation that's there with a lawful purpose. When you notice, if I'm knocking at a door, what's exposed is I'm knocking on that door on the other sides of the blinds. It's my shoulder. You're not seeing my chest as you're looking through the blinds, you're seeing my shoulder. Same thing if we happen to be holding someone at gunpoint under the worst circumstances. What's exposed is our shoulders. That's why shoulder patches have become the industry standard. Now, I agree with you, we don't need to do everything that any other agency does. But when we're talking about providing safety for me and my folks that are serving these subpoenas or the search warrants or acting in concert as a force multiplier with the other agencies in this county, I think it's a small price to pay to give the public that we're addressing not only who we are, but what we're there for.
So, when you serve warrants outside the county, like San Joaquin County, do you work in concert with local law enforcement?
We would, yes. In most cases, it would depend on the circumstances. You know, one of the things that the sheriff's office over the years has restricted some of their warrant service and some of the warrants that they actually choose to execute, and it's gone to more of the violent felonies and violent misdemeanors. By virtue of having some of the contracts that we have at the district attorney's office concerning, you know, the Department of Insurance pays us for work comp and also the auto fraud task force. We've got some really good investigators that work the prison crimes, and also with ACNET, there are some misdemeanor crimes that come across our desk that might not be served by the sheriff's office or even by a surrounding agency. If I called Stockton up and asked them to serve a warrant for us on a misdemeanor violation for work comp, they would laugh at me until the phone disconnected.
So how does that work then? Do we go down there and?
We would advise the agency that we're going down there, and usually we would ask for a marked unit. Usually they can spare one unit to give us a marked presence.
They normally do that.
And then we would execute the warrant.
Okay, but it's our staff that would actually knock on the door and.
Yes, sir.
And then possibly take someone into custody or search the premises?
Depending on what your warrant is, whether it's,
Right.
usually it'd be a search and arrest warrant. You're searching the premises so that you can find the person, then arrest them in that case.
Okay, but I mean, you might collect evidence or that kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Brandon, on the last one of the 8,100 for upfitting costs for new emergency vehicles,
Yes.
I didn't quite,
So we had to replace 3 vehicles when I came on board. You know, they're law enforcement vehicles. Yes, we are not conventional law enforcement. We're not patrolling the streets looking for infractions of vehicle code. We're not doing proactive enforcement. But you brought up search warrants. Let's say we go down to Stockton to serve, in this case, maybe a felony warrant that we've worked on through follow-up and we're going to go serve. And as we show up, the person is leaving in a vehicle. Again, we have to be able to effect that arrest. We may have to use the emergency lighting. We may have to even go into a pursuit with that vehicle. If we show up at Stockton at 8 a.m. and the person is getting in their car and we don't have a vehicle that can perform those functions, I would guess, based on my experience, that it would take about 45 minutes for a Stockton patrol officer to show up, and at that point they could be as far as, you know, Tulare So we had to replace vehicles. We were able to piece some of the parts from the old vehicles, and I'm talking 2006 vehicles. They weren't, 2021s with 100,000 miles. So I was able to surplus some of the items, the emergency equipment, mostly the radio and some of the siren and emergency lighting systems, but a lot of it needs to be updated since 2006. So part of my background was building the emergency vehicles for the sheriff's office. I would guess that on average, a patrol car that I built there was probably about $20,000 in emergency equipment. We're putting about $5,000 into the cars that we have.
Thank you.
Supervisor
On the
Neto?
last page, the mock-up.
Yes, sir.
The patch says police on the bottom.
Yes, sir. The reason for that, and you'll find that that's the case in almost every district attorney's office in the state of California, when you knock on a door to serve a search warrant, district attorney's office, DA investigators is a very big mouthful of words to shout out at somebody when you're trying to knock and notice at that house. Almost everybody that you deal with, whether it be a 3-time felon or a law student that made an errant, or took an errant path, knows the term police. Everybody knows police. They don't necessarily know what a district attorney's office investigator does. So police is the common term to identify yourself and have it be known that you're law enforcement.
I guess you gotta put something. To me, all we're doing is militarizing the district attorney's office. And it hasn't been done by anybody else. And it's not even the cost. The cost isn't a big cost.
Well,
I just don't see the reason. I think if we tell you to go in a suit and a tie, you're probably gonna be better off than going in a uniform. So maybe you should look like the other attorneys.
Well, I'm not an attorney.
No, you don't have to be, but you can look professional in a suit and a tie.
And there will be several circumstances. We do everything from dealing with children who are victims of sex assault to prison interviews down at the prison. There will be a myriad of occasions where we will be in a different uniform. There might be a very large portion of it that we will be in a suit. There might be a large portion of it where we're toned down to the audience that we're trying to get the confession or the admission from. In the case of a child who's been sexually assaulted, I'm not going to go in there in a vest, an external vest, and I might not even have a gun on for that matter. But my attire has to meet the activity that I'm conducting. A suit and serving a search warrant on someone in Stockton isn't really conducive, and it's not conducive for anyone. And that's the law enforcement standard, not the lawyer standard. Those are two different things drastically.
In speaking with Martin Ryan just a couple of days ago, I let him be aware of what our request was, and he says, make sure that you have police on either on your insignia or on the sleeve. And that's something that comes from his experience, and I know that Martin Ryan's a very respected law enforcement figure in Amador County, and he knows that this is something that is required. The fact that it wasn't there before, Supervisor Forster, I don't think is justification for not getting with the times and making sure that we are not only professionally putting ourselves out there to the public, but also potentially to bad actors, and insulating as much as we can the county, the department, and us individually from potential liability.
Well, instead of put police, why not put sheriff? They're not really police, they're not really sheriff, so what difference does it make?
What would be the definite? Well, the sheriff has a long-standing, and that's separated from police in general, but police encaptures a lot of different things. For instance, a state secret agent is still considered police, and you'll see all of their enforcement gear and all their shirts and everything else say police on it. It doesn't say special agent. The problem is, it's not that it couldn't. You certainly could. We could certainly say district attorney's office, police, or district attorney's office, investigator. The fact of the matter is it doesn't convey the universal term to some of the element that we're dealing with. And the idea is to get the insulation of saying that we are police, we are here for a lawful purpose, and have that first line of defense in them knowing that you're there under a law enforcement purpose and not someone there to rob their house in the various outfits that we could be wearing.
I'll say this day and age, I don't know if I want to have something on saying police, because They're not as, not that they shouldn't be, but they're not as respected as they used to be, and they're almost a target at times, which I think is wrong, but it is what it is. Kind of, something I think about at times, what the police force used to be going back 1950, 1960, you had one red light and a siren. Another day I was over at the fair, and there was some officer there, and they had their lights, their bright white lights on, and basically pretty much blinded me trying to drive. I thought, what the hell are they doing? I even told the guys, hey, you're blinding everybody. So it's gotten almost where I have bigger, brighter, more lights than you. It's almost become a contest.
I agree, but in our case, we're going to a quarter of what a conventional law enforcement vehicle would have, and I could show you those stats, but basically we're putting a radio, a control head, a siren, and I'm talking, the sheriff's office, they have a different function than we do, and so do the law enforcement agencies. They're patrolling for vehicle infractions and actually stopping cars on a routine basis. We have one siren on the books to be put in these cars.
You say control head, are you talking like your overhead lights?
A control head is what actually controls all of the electrical runs into that, and it acts as a depot box to tell the machine what to do. And it has to have that to switch between lights and siren and so forth. There's certain things that are required by Title 18 for any sort of law enforcement vehicle, and you have to have a steady red when you're going through an intersection. You have to have lights on the side. Certain things like that are actually required. But we're going as basic and as toned down as I possibly can and still get us covered under the title sections.
Another question, what do you need a rifle for?
Well, would we need a rifle on a daily basis? No. But as I spoke of earlier, we are a force multiplier for the other agencies in our county. You've heard the district attorney talk about the number of times that we have been called upon to assist other agencies. Most of that is after the fact. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be in progress. Some of the agencies that we assist, for instance, like Sutter Creek has one officer on right now. If they get something acute that's in progress, they're going to be reaching out for anybody that's available. If we are the ones that are available or we happen to be in that area, we need to be effective in our applying that facilitation. So let's say we've talked about the fair, we've talked about Dandelion Days, we've talked about all of the mass congregations of people and the events that we have in this county. At any one of those, any type of active shooter could erupt. We would be acting as, like I said, a force multiplier where we would show up if requested and be able to either cover the perimeter or through training help them in identifying the target and neutralizing that threat. With a short pistol, if you can put it into perspective, if let's say we were put on the perimeter because the originating agency already had their entry team or whatever was in place to address the threat, we'd most likely be on the perimeter. That might be 30 to 60 yards away from the entrance to a building or a car where a suspect is occupying it. If we happen to be the only person in place when that suspect emerges and that suspect has a hostage or a child, if this happens to be a school shooting or an active shooter at a school, we need a weapon platform that can actually make that shot from a 60-yard distance. Can you make a 60-yard headshot and miss the 8-year-old that's being held captive by a suspect? Sure, you can, but that type of training and that type of regimen is more similar to like a special forces outfit. That's 60 yards, under duress, on the move. That's not something we're going to be able to train into our people without extensive training. Whereas if you have a mid-range rifle, which is available even to civilian use at this point, you can reach out to 60 yards with a weapon that's designed to do so with very little training. And that would be
$1,700 is probably a fairly decent gun in my opinion.
It's a mid-range. It's not super high-end, and it's not bargain basement either.
Another thing, why couldn't you just, as far as uniforms, you're talking about $450 a piece roughly. Why can't you just have like a vest you put on when you go to a service search warrant?
We will. That is what we're talking about. But you still need.
I'm not talking the ballistic vest. I'm talking just a regular vest that says, hey, police, whatever you want.
Just a regular vest that doesn't offer any ballistic protection?
No. I'm okay with the ballistic. I understand you need that. I'm saying so people can identify who you are. Just have a vest put on, has a big old symbol in the back, says police. Maybe.
That is what you're describing is exactly what we would have on. It is a vest, and it has, the only difference is it has the capability of holding your radio, of holding magazines of holding the different.
Well, I'm talking about, you're talking about uniforms, $450. I mean, it's gotta be something fair. I mean, that's a fair bit of money for clothing.
Well, to back up, I also want to make sure that because I don't know how the actual request was put on the consent agenda, but I just want to make sure that this isn't money that's coming out of the general fund. This
I
isn't-
saw that.
Okay.
We know that.
The money that we're talking about, that was an estimate because it's still in the design phase. When you design anything new, you have to pay for artistic creation and so forth. It may end up being much, much less than that. I have no idea yet. It's probably going to be, you're talking 2 patches per shoulder. If people want 4 shirts, we're only taking care of 2 shirts, but I would assume everybody's going to want 4 to 6 shirts if they're wearing them daily at 2 patches a piece. Roughly, they're $5 a patch. Then you add in the creative element of designing said patches, and then we need a badge for the carrier, the vest that you were talking about, our version, what we've chosen. So I'm guessing $2,000 is probably a relative, or a relatively safe bet. It's not going to be over that, but it could be under that.
You had 5,000 down, that's why I wondered, so.
You know, I haven't had employees, and I always told them that if you found something that would help our business or improve the safety of what we're doing, don't keep it to yourself. Let me know, and we'll go get it for you. And I started out on this, on the militarization of the department, but I was a little skeptical of. Then I moved on to that you're facing a force that's getting more militarized, or whatever you want to call it, all the time, and you got to match force with force. And like the search warrants, you don't know who, if grandma's going to open the door or a 3-time felon. And you can't, whoops, I got to go back to the car to get more gear. And so all in all, if you think that it's going to make the job safer for the guys, and I know almost all of them, then I would support it for that reason. This independent, I think there's some concern that this is just the tip of the iceberg, that we're gonna need more cars and we're gonna need more of this, and you're gonna want it out of the general fund, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, I can answer
And we're a
that.
little scared of that.
I can answer that.
I'm
So
just trying to be honest with you.
I hear you. It's also a introduction to a new person and a new assignment in an agency that they didn't work before. So I'm happy to build that relationship and let you know who I am piece by piece along the way. I'm not interested, like I said, and I'm quite certain that the district attorney is not interested in branching out from what we're doing. What we're trying to do is increase the legitimacy, the effectiveness, and the capability of our team in the functions that we have currently. In the functions that we perform currently, I don't need a Bearcat. I don't need a tank. I don't need a helicopter to take us to Stockton. But we do want to maintain our safety, our personal safety, and the safety of those that we're encountering, and we have to stay with the times that we currently operate in. You spoke of, not knowing who's on the other side of the door, and I completely agree with you. We always plan for the worst case event and hope for the best, not the opposite way around. And in some of the areas that we're serving warrants or even serving subpoenas, it's not necessarily even the target house that you're knocking on the door that is of concern. It might be the neighborhood that the house lies in. As Supervisor Oneto said, anytime that you're recognized as police, whether it's a ragtag bunch of guys with button-up shirts that are recognized as police because they can see the guns impressed in the bottom of their clothing, or you have something that says police, if you're in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time, you might get engaged by people just simply because you are law enforcement. And they don't differentiate between, are those guys Stockton PD or are those guys Corcoran SO? They just recognize you as the popo. And they're going to engage you as necessary, whether that be with force or verbally or whatever the case may be. We need to be able to meet those threats and respond accordingly.
Thank you. Okay, anything else from the supervisors?
Well, the Breonna Taylor case, you weren't going to stop that no matter what. They identified themselves, they shot through the door. They weren't worried about who was on the other side. And they were dealing drugs on the inside, so.
Anybody from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
At this time.
Okay,
I had one more question. What has historically been the DA investigator vehicles as far as emergency gear?
It's the same thing that we're putting, are you talking like to run down,
Historically.
basically? So basically, every vehicle that I've surplused, that we now have new vehicles for, but needs to be upfitted, it's mimicked from the old vehicle. So we need a radio so that we can hear what's going on in the neighboring areas, or, you know, let's say we're serving a search warrant in Stockton. Well, if that happens to be a day that everyone's rioting for some reason unbeknownst to me, I need to hear about that on the radio. Then it would have a siren so that you can effectively stop whatever law enforcement target you're engaging, and lights. Like I said before, if you're going what we call code 3 or emergency response, there's a million reasons why we might have to do that. You have to have a steady red forward facing, and you have to have flashing red and blue that's visible from 360 degrees. So in order to accomplish that, we're doing is, because of the relationship that I've fostered with some of the emergency vehicle upfitters, they're bending over backwards to give me what we need in a price point that we can afford.
Okay.
You're talking on code 3, when would the DA investigator ever need to do that? In the case of a mass shooting or something like that?
Well, certainly that situation, hopefully we don't have to experience that, but we could have to experience that. But also if let's say we're going to lunch and the sheriff's office puts out for an $11.99, an officer needs assistance, I'm not going to pass up on that. I'm gonna have to go to that to offer my assistance, whether it costs my life to that degree. In that situation, we would respond code 3. For instance, I talked to you about serving search warrants. If we get down to a search warrant location and we see the target of that search warrant get in their car and leave, we need something. Code 3 is anytime you engage the siren and the emergency lighting at once. And I would have to do that just to simply stop that car.
So now the DA investigators are going to be involved in pursuits as well?
If we're serving a search warrant and the person is leaving their house, how else would you
Well,
suggest?
formally, what would have happened? The DA investigator would have
We're not looking,
talked to law enforcement,
we're
right?
not looking for it, Supervisor Forrester, but if it happens, you have to be prepared for it. And we have had pursuits. We've had foot pursuits before. Ask Gary Wooten about what happened in, I believe they were in River Pines. And Gary Wooten had the guy leg bailed on him, and he put his arm out and knocked Gary to the ground, and Gary was out there chasing him. So yeah, if he got into a vehicle, they were able to apprehend him. But if he got in a vehicle, we would have been pursuing, and we would have been doing so at the time without the appropriate lights and siren.
Well, maybe it's not your job to do that. You're a DA investigator, you're not law enforcement.
Okay, back to the board.
We realize we're not 24/7. We realize we're not patrol, but we are the most experienced law enforcement entity in the county. And we are asked frequently to assist for overwhelmed police departments. I will note Sutter Creek is one, where you have a part-time chief and a bare minimum number of officers to be able to patrol. Historically, and certainly in my tenure and probably before, but certainly in my tenure as that department has thinned out, we are increasingly asked on serious felony matters, violent crimes, to assist. And we've always rendered that assistance when they've been asked. So yes, we do get involved in those kinds of cases, sometimes after the fact, sometimes when they're happening.
And should you be involved? I mean, it increases the liability for the county, notches it way up when that happens.
Yeah.
So the question should be, should our DA investigators be in those positions?
Well, again, the reason I gave the historical perspective is to the interaction between the Investigative Bureau since its inception to the present, is to show, number one, that there's been that history of assistance to allied law enforcement agencies, not just the state and local, but when they ask, we're there. I'm not going to turn my back when a law enforcement partner says, I need your help. We're going to be there for them, as I would expect that they would be there if we needed their help.
Anyhow, you know, we are a small county and, you know, law enforcement resources are spread thin, so having an additional backup is a good thing. I understand some folks' concerns, so we, you know, we can clearly, you know, revisit this if it escalates, but I think this request is reasonable at this time, so I'm willing to make the motion to approve purchase of unbudgeted equipment for the DA Bureau of Investigations using the asset forfeiture trust account.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
This will require a forfeit vote.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. 4-1-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to 3G. Request to name Pioneer Park Ball Field, rename. To name, yeah, I guess it isn't rename, it's request to name Pioneer Ball Field Park.
Yeah, there's no name on it.
Yeah, there's, right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, John Hopkins, General Services Director. I got this request from this gentleman, I don't know, probably about a month ago. He wished he could be here, but he couldn't because he works during the day. So he still asked me to present the email that he had provided to me to you to see what you wanted to do about the upper ball field up there, and him putting his past friend's name on that backstop.
And they're also looking to refurbish.
Yep.
Refurbish the field.
Well, yeah, what he mentioned in his email there, yeah.
All right.
So it's really, that's a decision up to the board. As I mentioned in here before, we used to have a Pioneer Park Board that no longer exists. So it falls to you guys because you don't have anybody assigned up there to sort of hear these things.
You know, one thing I would say, I wouldn't mind if they named something in the field after him, but I kind of like the name Pioneer Park Ball Field. People know right where it is.
I don't think the sign will get replaced. I think he just wants to put his name on a backstop there.
It would just be the field.
It's just the field,
Yeah,
not the
like-
Pioneer
Not the whole
Park.
park.
Dieter Park Field is John Imey Field at Dieter Park.
Right.
And is that I guess that's in perpetuity, the naming?
It can be whatever, well, open for discussion. It can be for whatever you want it to be. I mean, I could see somebody else coming, this is the first request we've ever had like this in its
Right.
history. We could have somebody else make another
Well,
request
like
5
in
years.
Yeah, and-
30 years is, you know, would everybody remember what's going on, you know, why he got named after this individual? I read the letter. He seems like he was a good guy and, you know, he loved baseball, so.
Right.
That's a good thing.
I also remember history. We had something, I'd say, very similar to this happened. You probably remember that, John. No offense. It was Robin Ormsby came in, and J.D. Atkins Ormsby wanted to name a bridge in honor of him, who he died in the Iraq War. Which, hey, I respect his service, and it's a tragic thing. And it seemed like a no-brainer, very logical. Well, he said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And then we had the American Legion came in and said, what about the rest of the vets? And then the Allen family came in and said, hey, that bridge is being renamed, was ground that came from our family, and our brother or uncle, you know, whatever, died in World War II. What about him? So it's just something I haven't forgot that.
No, I haven't either. And there have been requests for naming of things from people that live up there before as well. So it's why it's here for you to consider.
I don't care if it goes on the field, the backstop is fine, but I agree leaving the park, that's Pioneer Park.
And that's what I told the gentleman when he first contacted me, and I, referred him to John. But no, we're not going to rename the park. And I said, but we could probably do the baseball field, because the baseball field doesn't, it's the upper baseball field. So the only thing we're doing is we're renaming that.
You could always, I'm just thinking out loud here, you could always just reserve, that backstop's a pretty large backstop. You could always reserve that to let this individual know that, yes, you can put your buddy up there. Yes, you can do these things that you're wanting to refurbish. And if somebody else comes along and they want to add to that and do something for the park, maybe you allow them to add to the backstop as well.
Yeah, it goes along with the.
Okay, with that.
We're hopefully going to get a grant from PG&E for the lights, to replace the lights there at the ball field. And as we've talked in the past, we said if you want to replace the lights, we'll put your name on the backfield of PG&E donating the lights to Pioneer Park. So anything we can get assistance with that poor little park would be appreciated.
I understand what Supervisor Arnetto's saying, though. You may want to reserve space. Like I said, backstop's a big area. Like you see law enforcement agencies, they have a plaque and they recognize those outstanding people or people that were committed to the park years ago, and you reserve that, or let me tell this individual that it's not exclusive to that individual, but he has the right to do so right now and rename that or put that in memory of on the backstop for his buddy.
Like a Hall of Fame thing.
Yeah, that's just an idea thrown out there. So it leaves it open a little bit and avoids conflict maybe in the future.
Ryan's talking about.
And Floyd still wants his sign. So you
Sure
better
he
get
does.
to that pretty quick, or he's going to come after you.
I can talk to Floyd. That's the best I got.
Okay. Anybody from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Back to the board. What would you like to do?
I'd like to keep it the Pioneer Park ball field. I don't mind naming a part of it or something after him. You say Pioneer Park ball field, we know right where we're at. I guess things do change over time, but that leaves more room for other people to be on items up there too.
Will you allow him to rename the backstop then?
Yeah.
Say in memory of and name that and put up whatever he wants to put on there. And
Yeah.
it's non-exclusive, so that if somebody else has an affinity to softball and was tied there, that they can maybe add to it if they want to.
I think so.
I'd
Try
second
to
that.
make it something that's easy to maintain.
Okay.
Is there some way where we can kind of write down why we made this decision besides the minutes? Because like in 30 years, how would we look that up?
If you want,
Nobody will care in 30 years.
resolution? I don't know.
It is. I guess the minutes are now searchable, or
Greg?
Well, it'd be hard to put anything in writing because everything is very ambiguous right now about what is actually they're gonna get in exchange for doing the work, so, I think the minutes are the best you get. You could do something more formal, you could make a resolution, but again, I don't know what exactly we're saying. I've heard different variations, and John has an idea, but it's not really clear. Does he, is it going to be,
Right, you
instead
could
of
get
diamond,
into
instead of
the size
upper
of
ball
it, what it
field,
looks
is
like, all that kind of stuff, and,
Well, could we give you direction of where we're going, and then you come back to the board with a specific?
I can ask him for an example and then tailor that from there so that it,
would he be willing to put a sign up on the backstop in memoriam of, I forget the individual's name, but something like that, or is that what he's?
yeah, I'll explore that with him a little further and then maybe come back for a little bit better, more definite.
But it looks like the board is not interested in naming the whole ball field, but maybe the backstop and being very, very specific. And go from there.
Okay.
Why don't we make a motion to do this and give the authority to John and working with you as the supervisor from the area?
I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
I would make that motion then with those details to name the upper field at Pioneer Park the James Jimmy Lee Kenyon Jr. Field, and leave the details to Mr. Hopkins and Supervisor Brown as to the actual artwork.
I thought we were doing the backstop.
Backstop.
Backstop, what'd I say?
You said the field.
Well, that's the request, the field, so if the artwork would go, whatever it is, would go on the backstop of the field, the upper field, correct?
Well, that's the hold on here is Supervisor Neto is not looking to do the whole field. You were looking at just to name but.
Well, the field is different from Pioneer Park.
It
Pioneer
is.
Park's the whole thing.
It's just the upper field at Pioneer Park. So that's the reason I'm fine with the redefinition of the field itself.
Yeah, when you say Pioneer Park Ball Field, it's there. You start seeing.
Now, there's two fields sitting there. There's the piece of junk field down below and the good upkept field up on top. So it's the upper field or lower field. So the only thing you'd be changing would be changing it from the upper field to the Jimmy Field or whatever.
On the backstop.
On the backstop. And it could still be the upper
You're
field.
changing the name of the ball field to the Jimmy Lee Kenyon Ball Field.
Yeah, the field, not the park. It's still Pioneer Park.
You know, it's still, for Sacramento, it's still Arco Arena for me.
Where's the Jimmy Lee Field? It's in Pioneer Park. Oh, I know where that is. So it's gonna solve itself.
I gotta add one little more confusion out there, but.
So that's my motion.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay, we have a first from Supervisor Forrester, second from Supervisor Crew. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining. I don't want to vote no in the memory of the fellow that passed away, but
Okay.
I don't want to vote for it.
So we're 4-0-1. Okay, we're on to General Service Administration, discussion of the impact of cities relative to the animal control services.
So, we've gotten to a point where, except for Amador City, haven't really gotten anywhere with them though, other than hearing from them that they'd like to work something out. The cities have all pretty much been silent on this issue, which doesn't surprise me. But we're at a point now where the resources to cover all 5 cities is a burden to the department, as well as the cities don't handle certain things the way that they should. They do ask for staff's assistance every once in a while in law enforcement issues, which we've got to manage delicately. When it comes to the legal part of things, we leave it up to the cities to handle those things. But the care and the board and the feeding, all that stuff is absolutely the city's responsibilities. It's no different than any other law enforcement agency that you have, the sheriff's office or.
We need to get patches for their shoulders then.
Yeah. Well, when they go out,
This way here, the dogs wouldn't bite them.
we're okay. So I don't need guns and pistols right now, even though in the code, police officers, deputy sheriffs, highway patrol, and animal control officers all share the same responsibilities if they are sworn officers. We are not here in this county like Placer. Our model is that we educate like teachers and enforce that way. We don't enforce like cops. And if there is an issue, they do a very good job of vetting that out. And if they need a civil standby, we call for a civil standby to assist us through the sheriff's office. So a little different model than the district attorney.
That's the way you should do it.
But regardless, the cities, we got to do something about the cities. So my proposal to you guys is we give them a time frame and we're basically going to cut them off.
I got one question, John. You're doing it by population.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what % of animals come in from what particular jurisdiction, roughly?
Yeah, we looked at that, and there is the ebb and flow could be 110 to 70. And so to provide the cities with an opportunity to, funding-wise, so they didn't have these peaks and valleys.
All I'm asking is would you say, does the population numbers?
They're pretty consistent.
So that correlates to what you're looking as far as animals taken in from different areas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's more from the city of Jackson versus Amador City, for example?
Typically.
An easy one.
Yes. And as the city of Ione continues to grow, they're gonna,
Has this escalated over time?
yes.
Okay, do we understand why that's occurring?
Yeah, the county has been generous.
Okay, but I mean, is it just that, or it sounds like there's more pets being surrendered though, too?
Well, yeah, we have that
Maybe
ebb and
not.
flow, you know, the coronavirus didn't help with that. It helped with adoptions.
Yeah.
But now you're starting to see that pendulum swing the other way, where people that took on those responsibilities no longer can take care of those responsibilities. So now you're seeing an uptick.
Not to throw a glitch in your numbers, but one thing I'd wonder about, I would think maybe you might, per capita, you might have more animals in the rural areas. And you've also got like livestock, stuff like that in the rural areas, which,
Livestock, a little bit of different animal. And yes, we deal with livestock predominantly a lot more in the rural areas, but dogs and cats, families own dogs and cats. And so the greater populations are the cities.
okay, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in essence, what I'm suggesting is you come from Jackson and you want to drop off Fluffy, we're going to say, go see Jackson. So now we have had a change in, I think countywide recently in our city managers' positions as well. So I know that that's probably not helping with the transition, but I have heard from, I think the gal in Sutter Creek, and she took my email under advisement, but I haven't heard from her. It still doesn't help our resources and the impacts to the staff, and we close on a regular basis. I mean, Evan calls me or texts me all the time and says, hey, I need to close because somebody's sick. You know, we just don't have the staff to continue to support the cities like that. And for me, I mean, when you take a look at the numbers, we could do a lot more with caring for the constituents that we are responsible for instead of dealing with the city's matters. I mean, cities want to be cities, they need to go be a city.
So you're really looking at only like the shelter and licensing services as far as the dollar amounts you're looking at?
I think when we did that, yeah.
What was the question again?
Yeah, we took the budget, yes. Yes.
Yeah, you're only really looking at the licensing and shelter services as far as the dollars and cents that you're dividing up.
Yes, and then field services is completely different.
Okay, that's the one I want to make sure, because,
Yes.
yeah, because that wouldn't be fair.
Well, when we took a look at these numbers, I think you did take the budget overall, right? That's how you came.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it includes all of that.
Okay, so I think.
In our contract, we separate it out.
Okay, so when these numbers, budget based on population percentages, I think maybe some of those numbers could probably be backed off a little bit on the cities, would be my guess.
If we entered into a contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we're going to continue as is, like we are today, no, those stay.
John,
That's also looking at the field services too, are including those numbers, right?
Yes. Yes, but the field services right now, it doesn't encompass, when we get called right now and Evan goes and responds, and we back charge him for his time, that's all we're doing, unless there's a sick or injured animal. But all of the other care and the housing and the feeding, that's not included in any of that. That's all part of here in this number.
Okay.
So to, like I said, to provide some consistency, we just did a flat, take the budget, look at the percentages, that's how we came up with those numbers. Yes, they're gonna change if a city gets into contract with us. Yes, that would change because we're separating in the contract the field services as an on-needed hourly type basis. But the care at the shelter, all the vet care, all the housing, all the feeding, all of that, it's gonna be pretty close because most of our impact is at the shelter.
Yeah, okay.
Supervisor Crew, excuse me.
John, don't you think it might be advantageous? I know the city managers meet like once a month. Is that, they still do that, or that?
We haven't met in a while.
Oh, that's.
There's been so much turnover.
Instead of trying to go to the city council meeting and educate them and go through that scenario, if you could sit with the city managers and explain why, they're people who deal with costs all the time. I'm sure you got a logical argument. They're not gonna like it.
Right.
But let them take it don't surprise the city council while we just quit doing it.
Right.
I think that would look pretty bad for us.
We've gone, we've sent them the contract. Each one of the city managers has received the contract.
I don't think the city council are surprised. City managers have got the contracts. If they didn't share that with their council, then they're not doing their job.
Well, it's never been on the agenda in Jackson.
That's because they're ignoring it.
Okay.
So on May 30th, I gave you guys a copy of the 3-page letter I sent to all the cities.
Yeah.
Crickets. And here we are in the middle of August. So,
Yeah, I think you have to put a little pressure on them.
well, and it could, and I, look, that's why I brought it up. There have been, I think, 3 city manager positions that have rotated here recently.
Yeah, it might do good to kind of let that settle down a little bit, but,
Right.
because, yeah, their interims aren't gonna wanna push this, but, the cities are all in trouble. Everybody's got costs that are going up. None of our cities are generating the revenues that they need to survive. I know the sheriff has just asked Plymouth for almost $400,000 more, for their law enforcement contract. Nobody can make ends meet, and it's a challenge. But the board needs to be aware that this is a charity on behalf of the county that we're giving to the cities.
Well, it's not just a charity.
Well, it's not just a
the
charity.
pressure we're putting on
Yes.
our staff.
Yes.
When they have to go out, legally now, 2 of them have to be involved with euthanasia.
Yes.
And that takes a toll on our staff. You wonder why people don't want to stay in that business when they have to do that constantly.
Yeah, and that's, you're absolutely correct. So it's, if the cities, look, I understand that, but I've said this before from the economic development side, where I don't understand that Calaveras is 10,000 larger in population and larger geographically than we are, yet they've got 1 city and we've got 5. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me sometimes, but those cities have chosen to be cities, and they have their own responsibilities. You, as board members in the past, we've had these conversations where we start to slip, and it is a charity. And you've said, okay, well, just do what you can and continue with that charity. I'm at a point now, though, where I'm burning people out, too. So we've got to consider the resources and what we do at the shelter, as well as getting in conflicts with people like even APAL over cats and things like that we don't need to. We don't need to. This is all created because the cities aren't taking responsibility for what they need to take responsibility for.
And there are counties where they have. San Luis Obispo County, all the cities came together with the county and built a facility. So there are counties that have that cooperative relationship with the cities. I know it's another cost, but we've been shouldering this for way too long, and the impacts are just getting more and more on our staff at animal control.
We'd be happy if with all 5 cities, if they'd sit down and talk with us and figure out percentage-wise how we could just get a tech and an animal control officer, just get 2 more staff on board to help with just sick, vacation, and sometimes the ebb and flow of animals that we get at the shelter at different times of the year. And I could even approach it that way, where we sit down and say, look, we understand that you don't have a shelter to take these things to. They just don't. They're not like Front Street in Sacramento or Stockton. They just don't have the means to do so. But maybe I can work out something to where with staff and with city managers, we can at least maybe get them to pay for, maybe not the full enchilada, but at least part of what it is to get there, to start this. And I can do that. But I think now, though, I just need kind of your acceptance to say, yeah, go forward and start cutting the cord.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do we just need direction today?
Just direction to staff.
Okay.
Just understand your phones are gonna start ringing. That's the.
Mine won't.
Yeah, yours
That
won't.
is true.
I'll give him your number, don't worry.
I would kind of set a deadline, though, somewhere where we work this out. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going. Probably by the end of the year, by January 1, we have to have some kind of agreement in place. Otherwise, there's other alternatives. I don't think cutting off services is the best thing, but cities need to know there are consequences for not taking this on and talking about it.
Don't know that the interims are gonna be able to find solutions, so that's the
Well,
problem.
I doubt if they're gonna be able to find solutions. What are you gonna do? Hire a, independent? There aren't too many.
Or even pay a portion to us that
Yeah.
need to, yeah.
I mean, that seems like it would be the best, so.
So instead of, I agree, and I'm usually the one that's a little more heavy-handed, but maybe if we continue to work on this until their next budget cycle, but their budget cycle is when we say, look, you've had all this opportunity
I
to
would say
figure it out.
mid-year budget. Mid-year budget, when you make corrections, which would be around that January 1. But you and I started talking about this when I was chair, so over a year ago, we started this process.
Okay, no problem. No
Has
problem.
to happen.
Okay,
You got your direction?
I got my direction.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Thank you, John. You get to stay there for,
Evan?
no, I'm, okay, next item is 3I, General Service Administration, County Business Cards.
Everybody's been waiting for.
Ms. Whitaker, would you come up here in case I mess something up here? She doesn't like to be front and present sometimes. I'm calling upon her.
She does a great job. What are you saying?
She does do a great job. I think she's just a little gun shy of camera and speakers, but. Anyway, so in my memo there for these cards, you see a representative sample of what I think all business cards should probably look like. We took this to the administrative committee. They directed staff to bring it to the board to talk about this. We did have, I think, cards dropped off with the board clerk for board members to look at 30 or 40 different other counties. And they have different thicknesses of cards, they have different colors of cards, different designs of cards. It's up to the board what you want to do, and if you want to have a standard or not, but up to the board here, what you want to do.
Why didn't we put the actual logo on there? You just say county logo, you know, because you were talking about size and everything else. And
I didn't have it. I think I didn't possess the technology at the moment in time.
We would also like to keep with a standard logo as well, because
Right.
there is different effects of the logo that are out there. Some have a braid around it, some have,
And that's kind of what I was talking about, is so we actually had
yeah.
a sample there, and
And
Well,
I
the
think
sample
that it
we-
was your card.
Yes,
that
it was
we
your
were
card.
Taking as a sample for the logo.
Mr. Chairman, which was left up at the board chambers for you guys to look at, but that was the, with the admin committee is the one card that we looked at that
Right.
represents, similar to what I've got here, it's just missing the logo, and then there's the recyclable symbol down below if you want to keep that or not.
Thought we talked about that.
And we don't have to have it there.
Yeah.
We can remove it. But I think it's important for the board to weigh in so that the entire county knows that we're going to get away from about the 35 different design of cards that we have. So the board says, yes, this is this is the way we want to be represented.
Yes, we should have one consistent business card.
Okay.
Everybody will sleep better tonight.
Is that good?
Yep.
that's done.
Okay, going to use your card, and we're going to let people know.
Okay.
What about using my card?
No, Mr. Brain.
I'm kidding.
Okay, we are done.
Your chair next year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to the last item, Board of Supervisor meeting minutes.
Move to approve with minor corrections, except for when we talked about the winery ordinance. The minutes refer to the winery ordinance committee. Actually, it's the land use committee. Talking about the winery ordinance. So that's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And this meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, August 22nd at 9 a.m. Closed session starts at 8:30.